أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما تحب وترضى بأن تصلي عليه بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. May I have Janab Harun Kasimji to come forward, please? Imran Ali, Nadeem Kasimji. Die mensen van die Kaapstad af is altijd. Okay, Nadeem Kasimji. Okay, spread out a little bit, it's okay. No problem. Taking space like that. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Janab Harun Kasimji, are you the wakil, the representative of Salma Kasimji? Has Salma Kasimji granted you consent that a hand be given in nikah to Zaid Parak with the meher as agreed upon between both parties? Janab Imran Ali and Nadeem Kasimji, are your both witnesses there too? Has she granted consent? Is she happy with the meher? Doesn't want a little bit more? Okay. Janab Harun Kasimji, do I have your permission? May I perform nikah? Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi. ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا محمدًا صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم عبده ورسوله. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد ومن يعصهما فإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا ونسأل الله أن يجعلنا ممن يطيعه ويطيع رسوله ويتبع رضوانه ويجتنب سخطه فإنما نحن به وله وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم النكاح من سنتي وقال فمن رغب عن سنتي فليس مني أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. May I have your attention, Janab Zaid Parak, with the wikala and the ijazah, with the representation and the permission of Janab Harun Kasimji and the testimony of the two witnesses, namely Imran Ali and Nadeem Kasimji, I have given the hand of Salma Kasimji to you in nikah with the mahar, the dowry, as agreed upon between both parties. Do you, in keeping with the tenets of Islamic law, Sharia, and in the presence of all of these people, accept her to be your lawfully wedded wife? Yes. Oh, okay. Okay, recite after me. Nakahtuha wa qabiltuha wa tazawwajtuha bidhalikal mahril madhkur. بارك الله بارك الله بارك الله لكما وبارك عليكما وجمع بينكما في خير. اقرأوا الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والجنة للموحدين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسوله أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم ألف بينهما كما ألفت بين سيدنا وأبينا آدم وسيدتنا وأمنا حواء عليهما الصلاة والسلام اللهم ألف بينهما كما ألفت بين سيدنا إبراهيم خليل الله وسيدتنا سارة وسيدتنا هاجر عليهم الصلاة والسلام اللهم ألف بينهما كما ألفت بين سيدنا ومولانا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وسيدتنا خديجة الكبرى وسيدتنا عائشة الصديقة وجميع أزواج رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم ألف بينهما كما ألفت بين سيدنا علي المرتضى وسيدتنا فاطمة الزهراء بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم اجعل بينهما ألفة ومحبة وقرارا ولا تجعل بينهما نفرة وفرقة وفرارا اللهم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين بارك الله ما شاء الله مبارك use your own pen use your own pen sign use your own pen yeah. Old style we sign future buy Apple pencil not touch pen. Where's open now? Did your father sign? Yeah. Did your father sign? When do you intend that? Done. Out. We need أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما تحب وترضى بأن تصلي عليه بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Most respected ulama, my respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, with the grace of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with the benedictions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we have commenced the new Gregorian calendar with the nikah and witnessing of the nikah of Zayd to Salma. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them mawadda and rahmah, inshallah ta'ala. And alhamdulillah, for 2023, you don't have to hear anything that I have to say. We have a special guest speaker this afternoon, inshallah ta'ala. in the form of Professor Ibrahim Musa, who's obviously a local treasure, so to speak. He is currently the Mirza family professor of Islamic thought and societies in Notre Dame. He has close ties with the Hunchback as well. And okay, and he has been the Islamic professor of Islamic studies in Duke University as well. He's also the co-director of Competing Modernities program in the University of Notre Dame, and he's the guest of Islamic Forum, when they're having a seminar this evening, if I'm not mistaken. We are indeed grateful to the Islamic Forum for always, making their speakers available to us. And Professor is an expert on Hujjatul Islam, Imam al-Ghazali. And considering that from a lunar calendar perspective, it is also the days of the death anniversary of Hujjatul Islam, Imam al-Ghazali, it is rather appropriate that we have him today, inshallah ta'ala, to speak on Hujjatul Islam, Imam al-Ghazali, Qaddasallahu ta'ala sirrahul aziz. And his topic for today is the concept of love, according to Imam al-Ghazali. Without much further ado, it gives us great pleasure to call upon Professor Ibrahim Musa to elaborate on this topic, inshallah ta'ala. فَلْيَتَفَضَّلْ مَشْكُورًا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله ومن والاه الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونظيرا من يطيع الله ورسوله فقد رشد ومن يعصيهما فلا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا. We thank and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we send salutations on His Prophet Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'm indeed very grateful to Haafiz, Maulana Fuzail, for giving me the opportunity to share with you some thoughts here today. When I think of him, I think of his late father, Maulana Abdur Rauf, who was a great friend and a great benefactor to me in various ways. And 25 years ago, when I still lived in the United States, still lived in South Africa, before I went to the United States, Maulana Abdur Rauf and I had many, many interactions and served together the Muslim community of South Africa on various platforms. So it's a great honor for me to be here today, just in remembering that important personality in the Durban area and in South Africa. Today I want to talk to you about the concept of love in the thought of Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, rahimahullah. Imam Ghazali, as you know, was a very, very important scholar in Islamic history, a man whose thought we still benefit from till today. He dies in 1111. He's died now. His legacy is for over 900 years. It's going to the solar calendar. But his ideas and thought palpates in the lives and in the thinking and in the breath of millions of Muslims today, as it did over the past. His monumental book called Ihya Ulumuddin, the revivification or the revival of the sciences of the deen, is an extraordinary book, a book that once you get hooked onto that book, you can't leave it. But it takes time to get hooked onto it. You need to develop a certain attitude. I remember many years ago when I went to go and study in India at the Nadwatul Ulama, where I graduated from. I picked up a book, a red-covered book. I didn't know Arabic, no Urdu at the time. And on the streets of Bombay in those days, on Muhammad Ali Road, I picked up a red translation of some chapter of Imam Ghazali. I opened it. I thought I read it, but I didn't understand it. And I kept it in my library. I know it is a red vinyl cover for many, many years in my 6 years of stay in India. And then suddenly somebody one day took it and my red Ghazali book disappeared. It was many, many years after that, returning to South Africa in 84, around about 87, that I was deputizing at the mosque in Cape Town, and there was a library of Imam Abdul Hamid Khabir, who had left the country, but he left his books there. And there I found the Arabic copy of Ihya Ulumuddin. And then I started reading that in order to prepare for khutbahs. Then I realized what a gem it was. And over the years, I spent a lot of time in writing my dissertation, my PhD dissertation at the University of Cape Town on Imam Ghazali's Usul al-Fiqh, on his legal theories. But why do I want to talk about Imam Ghazali and the idea and how he teaches us about love? Today in the world, there are some religious traditions that monopolize the idea of love. I'm thinking here particularly of Christianity. When you meet Christians, they would say, God is love. God sent his only beloved Son to the world and made him a sacrifice for the sins of humanity. That's a Christian story. We don't agree with that. So the idea of love has become central to Western civilization, but very few of us, very few people understand what that love means. And most Muslims think, oh, well, they got love, we got love. We don't understand that love, the word L-O-V, or the word hub in Arabic, comes with a package of ideas behind it. If you don't understand how that packaging takes place, you will misunderstand the concept. So every big concept has what we call a philosophy behind it, a theology behind it. A philosophy meaning a kind of thinking behind it. The word philosophy is not something that should make you quiet, it should make you active. Philosophy means a process of thinking. So the idea of love, as Imam Ghazali thought about, is a way of thinking. How does one think about love? That's a crucial part. Christianity starts with the idea that human beings came into this world with their DNA, their moral DNA, their spiritual DNA corrupted. That human beings come born with original sin. And that idea of original sin means that we are now, human beings are required and now have requirement to be redeemed. There's a redemption process. Redemption, a simple word for redemption is sacrifice. Something has to be sacrificed for that sin to be undone. And in the Christian story, it is about the sacrifice of Jesus and the triune idea of divinity of God in 3 dimensions. That is not our concept. So the very idea of love in Christianity is one that all love is redemptive. All love is redemptive. All love is a sacrifice, including the idea that you must love your neighbor as you love yourself. Sometimes I ask, why do I need to love my neighbor? I need to be kind to my neighbor. I need to be just to my neighbor. But there's the idea of love that falls if once you understand that you are loving your neighbor, because by loving your neighbor, you're continuing the process of sacrifice. You're continuing the process of sacrifice, of redemption. And this idea of redemption is very, very powerful, that even when the idea of love gets secularized in Western thought, when it becomes secular, no longer religious, it still has these elements in it. One major idea of love in Christianity is the idea of agape. Agape means a love that only becomes possible by the grace of God. A love that only becomes possible by the grace of God. So even loving becomes only possible because of God's grace. In Islam, we have a very different conception of love, and Imam Ghazali brilliantly explains it. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. Those who attain to faith, those who have Iman, are extremely and very, very earnestly and very, very seriously demonstrating their love for Allah. That serious demonstration for love in Allah. In Islam, we make a distinction between love. We love Allah, Allah returns and loves us. يُحِبُّهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَهُ. Allah loves them and they love Allah. That's different from the idea of rahmah. Love is a reciprocal thing, it's two ways. But rahmah, grace, is only the privilege of Allah. Only Allah has that privilege to open His doors of rahmah and mercy and compassion to others, to humanity. Now, Imam Ghazali points out that we need to begin to understand the 5 dimensions of love. We need to have knowledge of the true nature of love. And I can tell you that the way he explains it is that love is inconceivable. You cannot think of love except through what he calls knowledge and perception. Knowledge and your ability to perceive certain things, your ability to understand something. And later on he will explain that you must also have the power and the ability to understand. So love is characteristic of all sentient beings. All beings that are some form of life manifest love. So the simple way that we can understand love is, what gives you pleasure? As someone that's observing, what gives you pleasure? Young couple just got married today. They look at each other. It will give them a sense of pleasure. You go out and look at the mountains and the seas. You will see there that it gives you pleasure. Those are all manifestations of an element within your being of love. This ability to experience pleasure. And what causes aversion is the opposite of love. It's called maqt. So love is what causes pleasure, and the opposite is what causes disgust and aversion. And therefore human beings detest and avoid those things that cause pain and causes us unhappiness. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the 3 things of this world of yours have been made lovable to me: perfume, women, he was a man of course, and prayer has been made the delight of my eyes. All 3 of those elements, at a very elementary level, gives pleasure. Most of us hope that our salah will not only be a task that we do, but the task will also give us pleasure. Even though sometimes you start the prayers and tired, I want to do this, but you have to do it. By the end of it, you feel a certain relief. Wish I can do this more, right? So it's this pleasure that it gives you. Imam Ghazali says that the reason we love, because we love ourselves. This is quite unusual. And it requires someone who has a deep understanding of psychology to have arrived at this conclusion. He says the reason we can love an object, we can love a scenery, we can love another person, we can love an animal, any sentient being, because within us, we love ourselves. How do we love ourselves? The way we love ourselves is, he says, none of us wish for our own extinction. We don't want to die. None of us wishes death upon ourselves. We want to live. We also want to create a legacy. We want our legacy to live through our children if we are fortunate to have children. If not, we want to leave legacies. If we don't have children, we want to leave good functions in society. We taught people things. We built the hospitals, schools. We serviced humanity. Humanity remembers us. We all want a certain amount of immortality of some kind. That idea of immortality is not egocentric. It's a good thing. It only becomes egocentric. Love becomes egocentric when you don't see that this idea of love has a bigger function. It's just not about me, me, me. Because what happens through me, then it ceases to be egocentric. And I know this is a problem today in the times in which we are living, that young people are just all about, I'm so good, I have done this, I have done that. When it only ends with you, it's a problem. But if it means that you are a means to some greater good, that's a good thing. So let's think about what Imam Ghazali says. He says, we love ourselves, we love others because we have this capacity within ourselves to love ourselves through the idea that we want to perpetuate ourselves. We don't want to become extinct. And he says, and this is a very interesting insight, he says, the only time that we give up on this idea is when the agony of living becomes excessive. The agony of living becomes excessive. Then we welcome the opportunity to move to the next stage. Imam Ghazali says, so the first form of love that he explains in a very elementary way is love to perpetuate our own existence. The second is that we love somebody because they were our benefactor. They did you something good. They gave you a gift. They did something kind to you. They continuously do something for you. The young people who get married, they will soon love their wives because their wife does certain tasks for them. Wife loves the husband because the husband does certain things for them. That is love through benefaction. And we do that not only in marriages, but also for each other. We do these things always with other, and therefore a certain amount of love is established. The third one is you do love somebody for their own goodness, for their own sake. So for instance, you love somebody because they are great in the work that they do, in the knowledge that they carry, their expertise in a certain field, whether it's medicine, science, Islamic thought, horticulture, whatever it may be. You respect and you love the person just for the goodness in those traits that they have. They have good traits or the great capabilities that they have. You love them for that. They do not benefit you personally. The examples he gives is, Imam Ghazali gives, he says, you heard of a great ruler in a far-off place. That ruler has great virtues, great qualities of justice, fairness, all the good things that you're looking for. You don't even live in that person's empire or state or country. But just this very idea, and you get no benefit of it, just for the love of that idea. Or you heard of a great scholar, like most of you heard of Imam al-Ghazali, and suddenly there is a certain love in your heart for him. You heard of Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, you heard of Imam Bukhari, you heard of Imam Muslim, you heard of great scholars in the past, and a certain, they don't do you don't even know them, you don't even know their work. But just the greatness of what they have acquired and achieved creates a certain impact in your heart. Just because you can value knowledge, you can value good traits in those people. Then he says, the fourth form And the third and fourth are very much similar. That beauty and goodness evoke love by themselves. Someone don't have to explain to you the beauty of a flower. Someone don't have to explain to you the beauty of a piece of art. And Imam Ghazali talks about that someone has a piece of art, a naqsh, and he says, you get attracted to that. And he says that because that beauty or the goodness that you're observing has an impact on your external form, on your eyes, but also has an impact on your inward self, in your heart. Therefore, he says the question of perception. You must be able to perceive. And that's when you see with your inner eye. When you see with your inner eye. And the fifth form of love is when two souls just magically and miraculously are compatible. Just two souls. Right? Sometimes people talk about love at first sight. If it is true, if it's just not external, it is the rare instance when two souls just click. You find that between men, between women, between men and women, it's friendships that are just you met those people, two persons, and suddenly you found yourselves that the highest good now transpires between the two of you. Right? That is this amazing thing. I mean, you can think about Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi and Shams Tabriz. That two souls that just were transmitting to each other in extraordinary ways. And you find many of those kinds of examples. So this is the way in which Imam Ghazali makes us understand that love is how we experience it. It begins, we don't need any kind of magical, extraordinary philosophy to make us understand what love is. Love begins with our self-experience. It's what we do every day. And the interesting thing is, of these 5 levels of love, we love because we love ourselves. The second is because someone does us a benefit, a benefaction. The third is that we love things without any compensation or without any reward. The fourth is that we love beauty and goodness for its own sake. And the fifth, which is two souls just compatible, two souls just, connecting with each other in an extraordinary way. We love on a daily basis through each one of those typologies in one day. In one day. Because we experience these things in different ways. With somebody the relationship is this, with somebody else the relationship is something else. So love is something that is every day in our existence. And Imam Ghazali says that once you can understand love in this way, this is how your relationship with Allah is also. This is how your love and your relationship with Allah is, because once you realize that I love because I love myself, then you begin to think, who gave me existence? And the author of my existence is the real author of my being. And that is the one, and that being has my full love. Once you begin to understand that. And every step in these 5 processes, this idea of benefaction. Who is the greatest benefactor of all? Allah. Who gives us, things without compensation? Allah. Who gives us beauty and goodness and created beauty and goodness? Allah. And who gave us prophets and great awliya and great people of great distinction whose hearts connect with each other but also with Allah. So this is how Imam Ghazali explains to us the idea of love. And this is how we need to spend more time in thinking about what we call in philosophy the fivefold phenomenology of love. I didn't want to use the word phenomenology at the beginning, because I thought you all will fall asleep. But you have not, thanks to Allah. But you've been attentive. But phenomenology is just a big word. It means experience. Phenomenology means experience. So this fivefold experience of love. And this is something that we have in our daily lives, as I said earlier, that we do it continuously. And this is how we should and ought to think about love and our relationship with Allah. If we then can create this relationship with each other, and that relationship reflects with Allah. I will conclude with the great hadith of the story of Nabi Musa, where Allah tells Nabi Musa, "O Musa, I was hungry and you did not feed me. I was thirsty and you did not give me water. And I was sick and you did not visit me." Imam Ghazali quotes this in that chapter. And when Musa says, "Allah, how is that possible that you are hungry and thirsty and sick?" He says, "When my servants were hungry, if you fed the hungry, you would have fed me. If you quenched the thirst of those who are thirsty, you had quenched me. And if you had visited the sick, you had visited me." All three of those manifestations, in a small example, manifestation of love. So you give it to somebody who's hungry, homeless, whatever. You give it because you think it's a good thing. You give it because you think that person is like me. That person's existence must continue like my existence. You go and visit somebody who's sick. My friend and I just went to go and visit two people in their 90s. And I was saying to him that, when I read this chapter of Imam Ghazali recently, and I thought of this and I said, nowadays because of COVID and all these kind of concerns about contamination and so on, we don't go and visit the sick that often. We don't like to enter into hospitals. But we can visit them at home and we can take all the precautions. Imagine how that person feels at the age 80 or 90, that someone took the time to come and see them. Someone took the time to come and see them. They feel good about it. They will feel that someone cares. Because everybody in their house cares for them, but someone outside came to care for them. You will feel the same joy the day we are lucky enough to live to 90 and 96, that when someone comes and sees us and we can still have that conversation, right? So the question of love is central to our experience and our deen. And through scholars like Imam Ghazali, this idea is central. We need to spend much more time thinking and elaborating and writing dissertations, writing books, and explaining this notion of love in our tradition, so that that tradition of love becomes something that we all internalize and we become the advocates, because the civilization has many documents, has many teachings, but is only as good as when its followers become the personification, the embodiment of those teachings. This is a simple thing, but we need to spend a lot more time in this, because my concern about this question of love was when I saw some scholars begin to write books in order to mimic Christian forms of love. And I said, wait a minute, we have a very different understanding of love. We need to share this love, and I want you to think about this and share this with your families. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and hidayah to follow our teachings and do the great things of our civilization. And may Allah ta'ala grant you all a good new Gregorian calendar, and may you all be safe. And thank you for this opportunity. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Jazakallah khair to Professor Ibrahim Musa for that exposition of the 5 rules of love of Imam al-Ghazali. We didn't have to go all the way to 40. I think the 5 encompasses all 5, inshallah ta'ala. It's a very, very, very critical concept that the scholars of Islam have expounded upon. and it's one thing that is lacking. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala infuse our beings with His love subhanahu wa ta'ala. With the Prophet of Allah, when he was in a spiritual mi'raj, which is a sahih hadith in the Jami' of Imam al-Tirmidhi, and the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's so to speak, now understand it beyond kaif, right? That he's in the presence of his Lord, and Allah tells him, Sal ya Muhammad. And he made a dua, which I read all the time, Allahumma inni as'aluka fi'la al-khayrat. But the final portion of dua is beautiful. He said, Wa as'aluka hubbak. Oh Allah, I ask you for your love. Wa hubba man yuhibbuk. And the love of those whom you love. Wa hubba amalan yuqarribuni ila hubbik. And the love of those deeds which will bring me closer and draw me closer to your love. This is the dua that he made in a spiritual mi'raj. And he said, learn this dua and teach it to others. Because that is what we should be wishing for. This is what we should desire. We should desire this type of love, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakallah khair, Jazakallah Prophet Ibrahim Musa. He has a program this evening as well. Those who wish to register may do so on the Islamic Forum website. We wish to thank Islamic Forum once again for having made him available. And we may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase in him his knowledge. Allahumma zid fa zid, inshallah ta'ala. Well, we have a series going, I see. From Imam al-Ghazali, we're going to Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani next week, inshallah ta'ala. We have Sayyid Sheikh Afifuddin al-Gilani, who's the 18th descendant of Sayyidina Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, who is now currently also the chief custodian of his tomb in Baghdad. And he's a prolific scholar as well. His visa pending, inshallah ta'ala. He should be here on Friday, and he'll be our chief guest for Salatul Jummah as well. So we ask you to just remember that Sheikh Afifuddin al-Gilani will be here next week, and you are most welcome to, and our sisters are also welcome for our program, inshallah ta'ala. Well, that's about it, inshallah.